All right, folks, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this study session for the ACP-220. I think we only have 2 left after this, so we are getting close to the end, my friends. We're going to talk about site configuration. I'll give folks a couple minutes to jump on in and join us. But if you can hear me, please put something in the chat just so I know my audio is working. And I will get my chat set up. Morning, Frank. Or evening, Frank. And where was that? Perfect. And I'll just drop a quick poll for us. Thank you, Frank. I'm doing quite well. Got my coffee, ready to learn. All right, one more minute, and then we will get started and see who's here, see who's ready to learn about site settings and configurations, which will actually also dig into spaces. So, all right, we are going to get started, folks. We're not going to get started there. We're going to get started here. Just a quick reminder, I'm Rob. Yeah, that's who I am. I've been using Atlassian since about 2013, and I put on these study sessions both for myself so I can learn, but also so other people can avoid the frustration of having to learn by doing, and have someone to help them figure this stuff out. There's a ton of great resources out there, like the Atlassian Learning, but having some perspective and a lens from a group like this can be very helpful. Rohit, welcome, my friend, one of my channel members. I appreciate you. And it looks like, we're about 50-50 split with folks who were here last time and not. We'll do a quick review before we jump into the new stuff. Just some reminders on interaction. Please use the chat. It should be over there, the right side of your screen over my left shoulder. Please use that to ask questions, ask me to back up, let me know you can't hear me very well, those kind of things. But please also subscribe to the channel. I do this professionally, and I do need to shout out to my sponsors this week, Service Rocket. They have a great crew member program if you're looking for work in the Atlassian ecosystem. And I'll quickly drop a link here. They've given me essentially a part-time contract to keep working, which has allowed me to do things like keep doing these trainings. So a big thank you to my friends over at Service Rocket, and definitely worth checking out this link just to learn more about the program. This will just take you to their main page. Otherwise, please hit the like button on the stream if you like this. Lets other people know you enjoy this and lets me know you found it useful. And this will also be saved on this YouTube channel, so if you need to come back, you can. It'll be saved here. Debbie, welcome, my friend. We'll see how much we can get you in half an hour. Quick refresh from last time. We had personal settings. Please remind folks about personal settings. This is where we control things like our theme. We'll talk more about themes as we go today. But mainly we're able to control the email notifications we get. And I point this out because I didn't know you could do this, and I get buried by Confluence emails. So taking just a few minutes to go in and change our email settings can save a lot of frustration and annoyance at Confluence. So please make sure you review those settings, especially if you're going to take the exam. I think they do show up. But you do also want individuals to know where they are. We as site admins can also set defaults to things like emails, the weekly reminder, the summaries, etc. We can also turn off emails across the entire instance. I don't recommend doing this necessarily, but we do have some settings and controls across the board that we can impact that will control individuals' email experience, I'll call it. We also spoke about search, and the big thing about being a site admin is we have the ability to see search terms. This is very useful practically, because we can go in and see what people are actually looking for. And then it will also tell us if they search for something, did they click on a link to get more information about it. So it tells us both what are they looking for and are they finding information about the thing they're curious about. So a very useful tool in the app admin panel, just to see how people are using the system. Space admins can't see that. So that's where we have to step in and help out and, pass down search terms or have meetings or share information somehow to expose the search information. As a reminder, we're working towards this exam. The exam designation is the ACP-220. The name of the exam is Confluence Cloud Admin. And here we're looking at, I think it's going to be a mix of space setups and general settings and site configuration. And I say it's both because some of the things we talk about impact the site level and also the space level. So this will be another example of settings that we as site admins can set that impact the entire instance. However, in many cases, space admins can override the default. If we turn something off across the board, generally space admins can't override that. Similarly with if we shut off site-wide emails, an individual Surendra can't go just turn them back on just for themselves. However, if we turn on something like the weekly recommendation email, individuals can turn it off for themselves. So we'll see other examples of that when we dig into site configuration. We'll see those trickle down into the space settings and space configurations as well. As usual, we'll be following along with the Atlassian Learning. I'll drop that link in here too. And I just came up with a great acronym, ALL, Atlassian Learning Link. I love my 3-letter acronyms, TLAs. All right, looks like most of us did not attend last week, so you can check out the recording if you want to catch up. But I'm glad you all are here today. I'm going to just drop a quick question. How familiar are you with site configuration? And I'm asking this question because I was not at all. I didn't really know that these things existed until I actually took a Confluence exam a while ago, and I think I failed every question around site configuration just because I didn't know what it was. So we're going to go into the admin Confluence to improve the user experience, and we are looking at Yes, awesome. Configuring site-wide configuration. Now this, again, I'll cover a mix of things that impact spaces across the board, but just a couple. Oh, awesome. And so far, half of us are fairly familiar with this. But an equal number are only a little bit. There is a lot into site config. In terms of the exam, there's a couple questions on it, I think. In terms of day-to-day life, I don't see most folks. I'm looking at the wrong page. What am I doing? I'm looking at most folks most of the time looking at the wrong thing. Y'all need to yell at me when I'm sharing the wrong stuff. Here we go. No, Tushar, that was a mistake on my end. Thank you. Here we go. This is better. Confluence admins configure the site-wide function. And again, this is something that we impact across the board. So most of the things in here will impact everything. As simple as changing the home page. When we first go into Confluence, the default is the For You page. But as site admins, we can change this. I haven't worked in an environment where this has been changed. It lives under General Configuration. And we have this setting right here, configure the landing page. We can change it to a different space. I don't know if I would ever change this. I could see if we have a welcome to the company space that has very company specific information. But we do have the ability to switch up where someone goes when they first enter Confluence. This does impact absolutely everybody. So there's no way to say just people who log in from India go to here and just people who log in from America go here, etc. But we can reset this. So if we have a good reason to change where someone goes when they first log in, we can change that general setting. We can also do things like change a welcome message, add a banner, an announcement. And we also can do just overall site functionality, mainly around things like anonymous and public links. This is a big one. The ability to control the public links. Yes, I don't need to save that. For me, under anonymous access is the most concerning, site-wide permission in my mind, just to prevent people from being able to share this stuff across the board, or stopping space admins from turning this on accidentally. Most of the time, someone isn't going to be trying to share out confidential information. It'll be an accidental whoopsie. But unless you have a good use case for it, you can turn off the global configuration for anonymous access and public links across the site. So I can just tick this rocker, and this will turn off public links for everyone. If it's on, this is an example of a setting where an admin could choose to not use it or to turn it off in their space. But we do have these, and I find it interesting that they combine the anonymous access to space functionality, and landing on Confluence pages. So we're going to keep going down this, then pop back in general config and just kind of tear down every setting. The ones they call out here are probably the bigger ticket items, to use that phrase, the ones that you're more likely to use more of the time. Morning, Kyther. Good to see you, my friend. We've got this general configuration page. This has general configuration. One thing that I run into with all of these configurations and settings is just knowing what exists where. And I'll pop back into Confluence. And that's because there's a lot of settings and they had to put them all somewhere. And in my mind, not all of these make the most sense. For example, formatting shows up under general configuration. Is there a better place to put it? I don't know. In my mind, does it make sense to put it under general configuration? I also don't know. So some of these things I honestly either have to Google or I have to like command find to try and figure out. There is some ability to search. However, the settings search doesn't search things on the pages. So I can't find convert pages automatically using that settings search. So I as an admin just kind of have to be aware of where it is. But general settings lets us do things like change the title of Confluence. And this is what can show up doing things like changing the logo or changing the default names. The favicon, if you're familiar with what a favicon is. And actually, that's always a fun quiz question. I think I asked this one of this group earlier, but I wish I could pre-populate these answers. So the question is, what's a favicon? Why do we care about them? Can I just do 3? I have to do 4. This is... Oh, there we go. I can do 3. Perfect. Other things like the contact admin message. So just kind of general stuff. Now, in here are the ones that I pay most attention to. We've got the landing page. Again, I haven't run into an instance where I would change this. However, I could see use cases where if you have a particular space you want people to go to. We've got the convert pages automatically. This will be particularly important if you're flipping from cloud DC to cloud. There is an old editor. If you start a brand new site, I don't think you can use something in the old editor, but in a uplift or a transition out of data center, people's pages will come in using the legacy editor. You can force them to automatically be converted. This can break things like macros, etc. So typically I see this turned off until the groups are ready to force everyone into the new one. Oh, and we're all very knowledgeable about what the favicon is. It's a little, it's this little Confluence icon up here. If you have access to design developers or if your company has custom iconography, please use that instead of the general Confluence. I always recommend, I want to turn that back on. Always want to recommend using company-specific stuff. It improves the look and feel. Some other interesting settings we have in here. This is where we shut off emails entirely. I don't recommend turning these off because once they're off, people can't turn them back on. The avatars on published content. These drive some people crazy. This is where you'll get someone's little head up in the top if someone's typing or editing. So you can turn these off. And turning off Loom integration. If your team doesn't use Loom, like your company just doesn't have it, you might want to flip this off because this will have these annoying little pop-ups everywhere about using Loom to record videos and drop them into pages. So this is where you can just uncheck it, and that will disable it. The other settings on here, things like international settings, so formatting, these will be things that you look at maybe once, or maybe once a year. You just double check, hey, do we want to change how we format dates? Especially if you're joining a new place, you're going to want to double check what these are, just so you understand how things are formatted. However, there's going to be a point where you've said it and you kind of forget it. Same with maximum attachment sizes. Now this is in bytes. So I guess hang on, how can I do this very quickly? Can anyone tell me how many megabytes this is? And I'm asking because the fact that they give it to us in bytes is just kind of annoying to me. But how many megabytes is that? But you can set these limits. I tend to not touch this, honestly. In cloud, depending on your tier, you have excessively large limits. So if you're on, I think it's premium and enterprise, there's no upper limit to the amount of storage. If you're on standard, there is a cap out at, I want to say 250 gigs. So if you're on standard, this number might be important, like reducing this to reduce the size of attachments. But if you're on premium or enterprise, you have unlimited size. You still might want to restrict this just so people don't upload a terabyte file. That will probably do bad things to something. But that's where you control attachment size. And then also doing things like setting default languages. Individual users could change this. Again, it's a default. So anywhere we see the word default, individuals might be able to change it. It's about 104 megabytes. Why they make it 104 and not a nice round number like 100, I have no idea. Tushar is more specific. Yes, it's a very, in my mind, that's a very odd size to have the default. Why the 4? Anyway, back to our learning. So again, the general config is stuff that you will probably look at once in a while. Especially these international settings, especially things like the file sizes. All right, now emails. Most larger companies are going to have their own domain associated to this, so please use a different email if you can. This is where you have to talk to your org admin, and this is where all the Confluence emails that come out will originate from. And where does this live under? Here we go. Notifications. So this is another area we briefly touched on last week where we can impact global site-wide notifications. I don't have any custom emails set up, but this is just coming from a generic Confluence at atlassian-champions-sandbox email address. So you might have Confluence at your company or info at your company or anything else. Again, you as a site admin can't change this. You got to go to the org admin. The email and Slack and team settings are really more interesting. This is where we get more control over the defaults and settings. This is the recommendation email, and this is the thing people get every week. If we turn these off, people cannot turn them back on. So typically I leave these checked, and then I inform and I educate and enable other folks on how to go into your personal settings. That's the head icon and then personal settings to turn off their own individual ones. But there's no way for me as the admin to pick a group of 10 people and turn it off just for them. They have to go take care of it themselves. So making sure folks know where that lives for their own personal settings, very important. This is that recommendation email. I get these, and honestly, I think I throw them away every time. So I personally don't get utility out of them. They're a nice idea. The fact that I don't get much use out of them might be because I use Confluence in a way other than intended. Like I'm in a lot of different spaces doing a lot of different things. I don't... Tony J. I'm going to have to go look that up. I don't know who that is, Kyther. Again, I tend to just delete these or ignore them or send them straight to spam or trash. Sorry, Confluence. The announcement bar. I'm just thinking back in my own history that the announcement bar is typically only used for like migrations and things. Just curious, do people use the announcement bar? It is very useful because it drops a gigantic bar across the top. Annoyingly, it lives in a different spot. There are some configuration and some tools we have that live up under admin tools. I forget that this lives there. So we've got this announcements bar. This allows me to add a bar along the top of the page with information. Now, keep in mind, I can't really filter or target an announcement bar. I can't really control what's in here or who sees it other than everyone, including guests and anyone who can get in, or just private, just licensed people in my instance. So I can't control this only goes to people who are in a certain department. I can't say this only goes to space admins. This goes to everyone. And I can set dates when it turns on or off. So that could be helpful. But once this is published, this is going to put this bar along the top of the page with information. So I see this very frequently used with migrations. Frank's got some advice here. It should be used extremely rarely or people ignore it. I'm kind of laughing because if it's always up, people will get used to it. Typically when I use it, I make it red, and I have like emojis and stuff in it to make it harder to miss. And it's about, hey, we're planning a site-wide shutdown. Hey, please don't do testing in here. This is a test environment. That's another very common one that I use. Once they're used, you can archive them. You can't delete them, so this is hanging out here forever, and we can duplicate it. So it does keep just a running list of what these are. But one way to talk to folks, but we can't really control who sees it. It's everyone, essentially, or no one. We can exclude guests. So that's, I guess, the only plus, and we can exclude, like, anonymous users. So just keep in mind that this exists, and it's site-wide. Here's an example about a town hall, for example. All right, some security settings. Again, most of what we're talking about today falls into the list of things that are going to be set up once and we'll kind of forget they exist. So you might want to add to your yearly checklist the things that you look at once a year just to make sure they work. Before I dig into security settings, I'm going to take a quick sip of coffee and give a shout out to my friends over at Service Rocket. Again, they have the crew member program. Essentially, you can sign up to join or take a look at that link. And then as they have work for your specialty or your area, they may have a couple hours here, a couple hours there. I'm working with them part-time, which has been a great way for me to continue doing this. Based on all of your support, all of my members, all the folks purchasing my courses in Service Rocket, I have a full-time job, which is amazing. And I'm drinking out of my World's Best Jira admin mug, which I know at least one other person on this call has. All right. So, security configurations. Shockingly, this lives under security. All right, zoom in here. Whee. I think hide external links from search engines is checked by default. This is probably something you want to keep checked unless you have an explicit use for your site of supporting external users. I'll actually drop a link to more information about this. So this is something that unless you have an explicit reason to turn on, you probably want to keep this turned off. It's also something that before you untick, talk to your information security, your IT team, your legal team to make sure it's safe. Everything else in here is a whole bunch of extra security and privacy information, like cross-site scripting, Kafka on logins, page timeouts. Personally, I don't touch a lot of this stuff. It's definitely on the more technical side, and it's something that unless you know explicitly, hey, you should change it, it doesn't need to be changed. The other thing you'll notice is we as admins can't change it. We just have to know it exists, and we have to know we can only do this by talking to Atlassian support, because this can impact things in negative ways that we don't want. So all we can really do in security config is hide personal data in analytics, and then hide external links. That said, this is important enough that they call it out in their official training. So it's something we as admin should know about, and also something that we as people who are looking at sitting the exam should definitely know exists. Global templates and blueprints. This is actually a really good one and more practical one. This is something I do look at more than once a year because global templates let me give a template to everyone in the site. Space admins can make their own templates that live in one space. But unless someone knows how to search between spaces, they're stuck with just the ones in their space. The global templates that we can set up are visible everywhere. That just lives under global templates and blueprints. The other thing we can do is we can turn off blueprints across the board. I typically don't do this very much, and I leave these blueprints available because they can be useful for inspiration. They can be helpful for teams looking for something to do or some template they need. But sometimes I find some of these annoying enough that I just disable them across the board. And this turns them off in every space. Individual admins can turn off their own blueprints in their own space, but this does it for everybody. So if you're getting a lot of complaints around a particular blueprint is too confusing, no one can figure out how it works, your team just won't ever use a competitive analysis blueprint, shut it off. You can also edit the global blueprints here. So if you find people using them and it's confusing them, or you want to adjust it, this is the other place you go. And the experience of building a global template and editing them is identical for site admin or space admin. It's same. Oh, I want to see examples of global blueprints. Oh. Those weren't examples. That's just a list of them. All right, what questions do y'all have so far on site config? This is kind of the high-level stuff. We're going to dig more into, it's the look and feel we need to get into. Yep. Some more things that I find a little bit scary because they involve acronyms like CSS, as well as our ability to like download PDFs and export this site. So any questions so far, any specific areas y'all need me to dig into? Seeing a lot of crickets. Perfect. All right. We can customize navigation a bit. Again, when you can, I always recommend take the time to conform your site to your company's branding. It makes the look and feel is important. It's a small thing, but doing things like changing the logo at the top, and that's the logo that pops up here, to your company's logo is very helpful. Changing the favicon, if you have an appropriate one, can be very helpful. You can also change the color palettes. So there's not too much we can do in here, but if you have company colors, we can configure it to I think it's any hex code. And there's also even a little accessibility standards check just to help make sure it's usable. Debbie, thank you so much for joining. Have a great day, my friend. And I'll see you in the recording. But take time to change these colors. a great example of something that you might only ever do once or when your company does a rebrand. But it is something, if you are aware of a rebrand, raise your hand and let your team know, hey, we can change some of the things in Confluence. When I've been involved in these, typically the team doing it wants to get everywhere. They want to change every color that they can. And if we can help them out with even just a little, even just a couple, that can be important. And that's just our customized navigation. All right, themes. I have another question for people. Why can't I do a poll? Where's my poll? There's my poll. Do you use themes? And the reason I'm asking about this, it's another thing that I didn't know what it was or that it existed until I had to sit this exam and I had to learn about them. This is kind of a trick question because there are default themes. We are all using a theme in Confluence whether or not we know it. Everyone can find their themes by going to the top right under theme. I am a fan of the dark theme, and you can see it just changed, like flips the contrast for me. So I personally like the dark theme. That's how I tend to operate, easier on my eyes. You can get other themes though. So if we go to the Atlassian Marketplace, Confluence theme, somewhere in here, there will be themes. And I'm kind of laughing because they say go to the marketplace to get them, and I typed in Confluence theme, and I can't tell which one of these have new themes. Like, I'm fairly familiar with Karma. I don't know if they have themes or not. This one is copy a space. So, I kind of laughed when I saw themes. I will show you how to go change them. As an individual, you can always go up to your profile and just change the theme. As an admin, it's under look and feel. If there are other themes installed, this is where we can change them. And I don't have any in this demo instance. This also shows up, or I believe should show up, for space admins. I think this is one of the things that we as space admin gets under my settings. Frank is saying themes are a rabbit hole. Curious in your experience, Frank, how are they a rabbit hole? So this is the space level, and we can see a similar page. We're dependent on themes that are installed, so we need someone who has the access, probably an org admin, to go and install some of these apps or these themes. Once they're there, though, we can use them. I have never used one that isn't one of the two default, light mode, dark mode. And I can see in our chat, most of us don't use them, and it's an even split between yes and folks don't know what they are. So this is something, if you have them, great. If you don't have them, it's probably okay. But there's the themes menu where we can change the default. And just a reminder, again, if we're sitting the exam or talking to folks, space admins can select their own space themes. Okay, the application navigator. This is the icon on the top left. I call it the app switcher. This little I'll zoom in more. Oops. This little 4 icon is the app navigator. We can add links to this. And this can be useful. So by default, it's going to list out all of the apps that we have. For example, Confluence, Loom, Jira Focus, whatever. At the bottom, we can configure more in here. This can be very useful. It is site-wide. Again, that's what we're talking about today. But we can append more links down to the bottom of this list to help folks find things more easily. And I don't know, can I do it here? Switch sites or apps. Let me flip over. Can I do it in this one? No, I can't add them here. Huh. This is a useful feature if there are site-wide resources you want people to have. Another company homepage, something that everyone's expected to do, a link to an all hands, those kind of things. That said, you're adding it to the bottom of this list. Most people are probably not going to know it exists. And even here, I've got a link to Atlassian and Jira. Great. So most people have probably looked at this list in the app switcher and they go between Jira and Confluence, and that might be it. So keep in mind, we can add other links. How commonly are people going to see it or use it? I don't know. But it's one other way that we as admins can improve functionality and add more information. Again, I've personally never used it in the wild, in the real world, but we can append to that. And yeah, half of us don't use themes, and a third of us don't know what they are. Perfect. All right. I guess next question about this topic, the custom header and footer. So the header and footer on a page refers to the very top and very bottom. I'm more familiar with these in like a Word doc or a Google doc, but the header is all the information like at the top that there's nothing in right now. And way at the bottom, there's also a footer. It's kind of a generic term in documents. In a Google Doc or Microsoft Word doc, every individual page that you're writing on has one of these. In Confluence, the top and bottom of a single page has them. Frank's got a quick question on the app navigator. I don't know offhand. I'll have to go look that up, my friend. I'll see if I can find an answer and drop it over in Discord later today. Oh, and we're about even split right now. Folks don't use the header and footer, or they don't know what it is. It's some space at the top and bottom of a page. And again, the top and bottom here is just defined as when I scroll to the bottom, not as a set amount of space like it is on a physical piece of paper. We can change or add information to this. For example, many groups might include a link to their help desk. So every page automatically gets a link to the help desk. This also is under look and feel. Now you'll notice there's no editing options here. It does support what's called markup though. And markup is how we can type things in and then the system will interpret that differently. For example, adding a star as a bullet, adding a number as a numbered list. I can add a header with h1 dot and then what I want. So I might do something like this. Whoopsies. So this is now site-wide. This is another example of a configuration that I can add that will impact every page in the site. So now you'll see way at the top, I've got this is the header. And the way at the bottom, I'll have this is the footer. So I see groups, again, typically using this to insert links to commonly used stuff, to remind folks about information. This, however, is a setting that at the space level also exists. So I have this is the header, this is the footer. If I go into the space, under look and feel, it lives under layout. This drives me nuts that they call it two different things. Site-wide, it's called the header and footer. In the space, it's called the layout. So maybe I'll change this to space header. Excuse me. And this should override whatever I put on the site. So I now have space header on this space and space footer. Again, most groups I work with hadn't used this feature. It looks visually a little bit odd to me on some pages just because it appears above the title of the page, but it allows you to insert information. This could be a way to insert information in addition to an announcement bar because it shows up on every page. Keep in mind it doesn't show up on other content types. So if I have a whiteboard, this wouldn't show up. And I'll maybe I'll make a database because that'll be quicker. There is no header and footer on a database or a whiteboard or a smart link. in the same way there is a header footer on the page. So something we can do to insert information, and it does support that markup. You can add links, etc. So you can make it fairly information rich and interesting instead of just plain text like I demonstrated. Oh, some of us actually use it. Amazing. Thank you, Frank. Frank's just following up on his own question here, and I appreciate how he jumped in and took a look. I'll always encourage folks to go investigate things as you go. All right, quick coffee break for Rob, and let's see where we're at. Ooh, exporting content. I'm of a couple minds with exporting content, and I know some people are as well. I've worked with people who say you should never ever export content because as soon as you hit export, it is out of date. It kind of doesn't matter the format we pull it into. As soon as I hit export, it's stuck in a CSV, PDF, whatever. And also, usually when I talk to people, they want to export the PDF so they can either save it or they can email it to someone. Now, Confluence keeps track of everything. It's got the version history, and you can share things from Confluence via email. So I can't find a good reason to want to export content most of the time. If anyone has a good use case beyond I need to do a migration, please let me know. And again, that's because the arguments I've heard to do it can be countered by reasons not to do it. I'll get off that soapbox. But we do need to understand these as admins, and there are some examples they give. A printable user manual. So there is a legitimate use case if you have a emergency restart guide. Let's say your site loses power. Well, you can't get to Confluence if you have no power. So maybe you have some documentation you print out and refresh every so often. Now, I'm thinking back to my first job in IT. We had multiple 3-ring binders of like user manuals for the system. We don't need that. We need the emergency, hey, what to do in these specific cases. To make a static website, I don't know about this. I haven't run into anyone who's ever done this or needs to. To import from another space, this one I could see using, and a recovery backup. Okay, very limited use case. Now there's two levels we can export on. Individual pages can be pulled out just through more actions, or entire spaces can be exported. And keep in mind, permissions are respected unless you are the site admin doing a CSV or XML export. And that's by design. For those exports, is for some kind of backup or to transfer content. So I'm going through this in more detail because I do recall specific questions about this on the exam. So please keep in mind you do need to understand the difference between CSV, XML, and PDF in terms of just general use. So going back into Confluence, I don't need my database. From a single page, I can go open export. And this is typically not what I think of when I think of exporting out of the system, just because I think of it at the admin level. But I can pull this down as a Word doc or a PDF. There are some limitations in terms of how much stuff is pulled down. Only 50 attached images are included in a Word export. That is a lot of stuff, okay? PDF is the most common thing that I see happen. Individuals tend to do this again for their own private copy, or they want to email it. Okay, and these only grab published content, so keep that in mind as well. If there's an in-flight update, it's not going to be included. And of course, because blog posts are their own special snowflake, those aren't included, and you won't get comments in the PDF. I have never done an HTML export except to test. This is intended to be a static website, so pulling it out, it does include just pages. It excludes the blogs, comments, and attachments. Now you can optionally grab comments. So by default, it's not going to include them. Again, I have never done this one. What I tend to see more is the XML and CSV. And this is more for backing up. They recommend the CSV for importing to another space. So if you want to pull a space down from one site and push it to another, this is how you do it. Annoyingly, only site admins can import spaces. So space admins can go export their own space, but they are unable to import the space. Even if you have the create space permission, you can't do it unless you're a site admin. Please remember that. I can almost guarantee you it'll show up on the exam when you take it, because it is just such a weird, no, you can't do it. As a space admin, I can go into my space settings and I can just go find. I've got my oh, that's not what I wanted. You know what? I'll just try it here. There we go. Export space. This is where I can pick the options. I can also, as the space admin, go through and pick just specific pieces of content. So this could be very useful if I want to get multiple PDFs. I can just prune out only the things I want and export them. I could also do, and notice that that option only exists for PDF. With the CSV, I can export the space, and same with the XML and HTML. As the space admin, though, I can also modify the PDF export a bit. I don't personally come in here very much because it scares me. But I can do things like add a header or footer to every page in the PDF. I can do things like change the style sheet and add a title page. Again, I haven't done many PDF exports, but I just know this exists. So if someone wants help exporting something and needs to change it, they can come in here and they have these different options. But again, more of a niche trying to do it. More commonly, folks just go to export space and pull down a PDF or CSV. Now at the site level, I should have the same PDF export. So another setting that I can configure at the site level across the board. But as the site admin, I also, whoopsies, get the import space. So a whole bunch of, also I absolutely love how Confluence Server is still referenced here. If you're doing a migration from server or data center to cloud, this is one place you can import. There are other tools Atlassian has if you're a larger organization, so you don't have to import each individual space. But you can import your CSVs here. Keep in mind, things like whiteboards aren't really supported. So it can be a bit janky depending on what you're uploading. But we can go in and just find our file and then import. And that's how we perform, a site-to-site transfer, I guess would be a way to think of it. All right, a quick question check. We got about 7 minutes left. But please let me know what questions you all have about the site config, the site management, those kind of things. Again, in my own personal experience, most of the time I'm not coming in here to tinker with these things, just because most of these settings, once you set up, you can kind of forget exist. Maybe don't forget they exist, but you don't have to come in here all that much. We covered the PDF layout. And again, this just and you can see why I'm kind of afraid of this. There's a whole bunch of HTML in here. You can modify and tweak how the PDFs are exported. So you might give it a nice title page. You might change what it looks like. Entirely optional. Again, just know it exists. And a call out here, again, as admins, we need to know that layout only applies to the space export, not to a single page export. So again, I feel really dry saying all this, and like I'm falling asleep. But an example of a feature that we as admins just have to know about and have to be aware of. No questions. I'm explaining this perfectly. I love that. I'm going to check to see if I promised I'd cover anything on C. Site configurations, header, footer, PDF exports. Okay, I think we got through it all, folks. Whew. Any other areas you want me to dig into before we wrap up? We've got a couple more minutes. I'm happy to go into other topics, areas, questions, concerns, etc. All right, folks. Of course, I need to fire my copy editor. We have 2 sessions left. Next Monday, and then the Monday after the 24th, we'll do our review. I'm curious, who's intending on taking? Does a 50 image export apply to PDF? I don't believe so, Rohit. That's explicitly for single page exports in Microsoft Word format. The PDF export should grab them all. Although I'd be curious, I don't work with many pages that have that many images. So hopefully that's a bit of a niche thing, but PDF export should include images. All right. I'm asking that question because I have an online learning course that covers the 220 and it includes an exam voucher. So if you're looking at taking the course, highly recommend looking at taking the exam and don't have a voucher yet or can't easily get one, highly recommend grab my course. A little bit cheaper than a voucher, includes the training, but once you finish the course, you get an exam voucher to go take the 220. So that can be a little bit more economical. Plus, you get learning content tailored explicitly to the course. What I do is I tear down the PDF of requirements, which I'll pull up very quickly. We will cover most, if not everything, around the exam through these live sessions. That course, though, is targeted and goes down every single requirement covered under our PDF. So under exam details, Atlassian gives us this PDF which covers everything on the exam. Administration types. We've spoken about most, if not all of this, but we as admins need to understand all this to earn that certification. We've got the site look and feel, for example, that we spoke about today. Customizations, promoting templates and setting themes. So that's kind of what we spoke about today. That course covers each one of these, both with hands-on and talking head, and also covers gives you an exam voucher so you can take the exam after you pass the course. So definitely worth checking out. It's got 7+ hours of video. You get to listen to me more. Hey, it's also got practice exams. There's a difference of 30 minutes between the calendar invite. Oh no! Tushar, I changed the start time about a month ago. It should have updated on Atlassian's platform. You should have received an update email. I'm sorry if you didn't, my friend. These all are starting at 6:30, though. So please, you just go update your invite if you can. I'm starting them a bit later because I don't have to wake up as early. I'm now doing this professionally. I don't have the 9 to 5. Which is why I have that learning course and why I'm bringing it up. And it's why I'm very thankful for the folks over at Service Rocket who are able to sponsor me and help me out here. Well, you didn't get it. I'm sorry. Kythro, why are you resisting the urge to make another nerd reference? It's still 6 a.m. Huh. I will go see what I can fix, Tushar. I am seeing on my screen that it is 6:30, but I'll see what I can do for you. If you could send me a link either in Discord or shoot me an email with what you're seeing, that would be very helpful. Just because the setup that I see says 6:30. The other thing I want to share, the next ACP we're going to go after is the 620. I think that's the right designation. Managing Jira projects for cloud. I took this one when I was in Barcelona. I did it live at Team. And if you are able to get to Team, you can get cheaper exams. So I think it's $80 to take it there instead of the $250. It's proctored. So I took the 620 at Team, which was great. I'll be starting that up early next year. So be on the lookout for that one. I'm going to take December off with some of these. I'll have other live learnings. But the next ACP I'll have will be early next year. And it's going to be that Jira Cloud. So shifting gears into Jira now that we've knocked out Confluence. And I've got the Loom Essentials ACA on Fridays through the end of the year as well. Otherwise, folks, if you're planning on taking the exam, definitely check out my course, get that exam voucher. If you can expense it, do that. You get learning and the voucher for cheaper. Oh no. I appreciate the reference, Kythra. For folks who don't know Grabthar, this is a fictional. This is a reference from a movie called Galaxy Quest. So fictional, and it lampoons, it makes fun of, it satirizes, it honors. It's like Star Trek. It's a great movie, Galaxy Quest. It's from the early aughts, late 90s, I think. Alan Rickman, Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver. Great film. But thank you for the call out. And don't resist, Kythra. So next session, next Monday, please review. Get that course if you're looking at taking the certification exam, training, mock exams, etc. Check out Service Rocket. Just take a look at their site. And if you do sign up, let them know, I sent you. And otherwise, reach out if you need help. We've got the Discord channel. We've got my email. Many of different ways for you to get assistance. So please remember you're not alone in this journey. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again next week. And I'm zoomed in way too much. You all need to yell at me more. All right, folks. Thank you all again. I appreciate you all learning with me. And I'll see you next week. Frank, you're welcome, my friend. And it looks like most of us want to take that exam. So hopefully most of us are signing up for that course. All right, folks. Have a great day. I will see you all again very soon. Oh, and I saw a little heart.